You people always want more than what's yours. That's what the teller said before glancing down at the account balance and nearly choking on her own breath. It was a sweltering July afternoon in downtown Atlanta. The marble floors of Alltrust National gleamed under the recessed lighting, the kind of bank where millionaires strolled in wearing track pants and got VIP treatment just by virtue of their skin tone or last name. But today, the air inside felt colder than usual, sharpened by subtle glances, silent judgments, and one woman's audacity to walk in expecting to be taken seriously. She wasn't flashy. No gaudy jewelry. No entourage. Just a pressed white blouse, tailored navy pants, and confidence that made her presence undeniable. Her name was Amara Blake. She stepped up to the counter and politely asked to withdraw $250,000 in cashier's checks, no cash, just checks. That shouldn't have caused a scene. But the teller, middle-aged, blonde Bob, Cheryl, on her name tag, lips pursed like she'd swallowed something sour, froze. Her eyes scanned Amara from head to toe, then narrowed. "ID," she barked. Amara calmly slid over her Georgia driver's license and a company debit card. Cheryl scrutinized the license like it was fake, then glanced at her computer screen. "You're saying you have this much money in here?" Cheryl asked, her voice coated with disbelief. "I'm not saying anything," Amara replied evenly. "I'm requesting a withdrawal from my account. That's all." Cheryl's eyes danced with suspicion. "Why do you need that amount? What's it for?" "I don't believe I'm required to tell you that." Cheryl leaned back in her chair, folded her arms. "Well, I'm going to need to verify a few things. Large withdrawals like this from accounts like yours." She let the last words hang, heavy and stinking. Behind Amara, a white man in cargo shorts and flip-flops sauntered up to the next window. He needed $300,000 wired overseas. No questions asked. The manager, a man named Kyle, was summoned. He greeted Cheryl with a half-smile, but when he looked at Amara, that smile faded into something cautious. "Is there a problem?" Amara asked, her tone calm, but sharp enough to cut glass. Kyle hesitated. "We just want to ensure everything checks out. You understand it's for your safety as well." Amara turned her body slightly, subtly gesturing to the corner of the lobby, where a polished brass plaque bore the name of the bank's corporate parent, Blake Financial Group. "I understand perfectly," she said. But they didn't. Not yet. After 20 excruciating minutes, Amara was still waiting. Her phone buzzed with a calendar alert. 3:30 p.m. meeting with Hudson Investments, Tower 5, Conference 18D. She dismissed it silently. A young black security guard approached, clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, would you mind stepping into a side room while we verify your credentials?" It's policy." She met his eyes. "Is it also policy to question millionaires when they don't look like they belong?" He said nothing. He didn't need to. The shame on his face said it all. By the time someone bothered to Google her name, the lobby was quiet again, except for the whispering from behind the glass. Cheryl had gone pale. Her eyes darted between the screen and Amara's face. The realization was slow, painful, and public. That's her. She's the one. The CEO of Blake Financial. One of the junior associates muttered, too stunned to lower his voice. Cheryl's mouth dropped open. Her eyes, suddenly wet, tried to find the right word, saying apology, maybe. But Amara had already turned away. As she strode across the lobby, Kyle jogged up behind her. "Ms. Blake, please, we didn't," he stammered. "Didn't what?" she asked, pivoting slowly to face him. "Didn't recognize me? Didn't expect a black woman to own the building you're standing in?" Kyle blushed crimson. "I'm sorry. Truly. We just—" Amara raised her hand, silencing him. She pointed out the window, where across the street, towering above the skyline, a 50-story building caught the late afternoon sun. Near the top, gleaming in gold, Blake Tower. Next time someone tells you who they are, believe them, she said, before exiting without another word. Amara's driver opened the car door as she stepped out of the bank, her heels clicking on the concrete like a gavel. Her assistant was already inside, tablet in hand. "Did they really give you trouble again?" he asked. She nodded, her expression unreadable. "They always down all they don't." On the ride to the meeting, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her firm's publicist. "Do you want to go public with the bank incident? We can have a press release ready in an hour." Amara stared out the tinted window. Her name on the skyscraper loomed in the distance. But what good was a name in gold when people still looked at your skin first? "No," she replied finally. "Not yet. Let them stay uncomfortable." Understood. She arrived at Tower five minutes early. Her team of lawyers, all dressed in black, were waiting in the conference room with the Hudson investors. Some of them had seen the news articles, the TED Talks, the Forbes cover where she stood in a red power suit with the words "America's quietest billionaire" emblazoned above her. But none of that changed the way she was sometimes greeted with doubt. The meeting went smoothly, with numbers and projections and growth curves flying across LED screens. Amara was a storm of clarity, measured, articulate, and uncompromising. By the end, Hudson agreed to a $120 million merger deal with Blake Financial. After everyone had filed out, her CFO, Andre, lingered. "They'll come around, you know," he said gently. "No," she said. "They'll get out of the way." She smiled just a little, not out of joy but resolve. That night, a photo of Blake Tower lit up Twitter. Someone from the bank, likely one of the interns, had shared what happened anonymously. She asked to withdraw from her own account. They laughed, then saw her name on the building. "Atlanta, do better." The post exploded. Blake did that began trending. By morning, Cheryl had deleted her LinkedIn, and Kyle's carefully composed apology post was already being dismantled in the comments. But Amara? She didn't post anything. She was busy walking into another bank, in another city, where another manager would try to decide if she looked like she belonged. And she would remind them all over again. Amara Blake didn't seek revenge. She never had time for it. But her memory was flawless, and quiet accountability was her weapon of choice. 2 days after the incident at Alltrust National, she returned to the same bank. Not to cause a scene, not to flex. She had simply purchased the building, quietly, through a shell firm her legal team operated out of Delaware. That morning, as Cheryl arrived in her usual creased khaki skirt and synthetic cardigan, she noticed something different. The gold-lettered nameplate that had hung over the door for 35 years, Alltrust National, was gone. In its place, a sleek black panel shimmered under the Georgia sun, etched with 3 words: Blake Private Wealth. Inside, staff stood around the marble lobby in hushed confusion. Kyle was already pacing, his tie loosened, his phone glued to his ear. "What do you mean we're being acquired?" Cheryl hissed to one of the junior tellers. But no one had answers. Just a memo emailed at 7:03 a.m. sharp. Effective immediately, this branch and all associated personnel now fall under the management of Blake Private Wealth, a division of Blake Financial Group. Further communications will follow. Staff are expected to remain in place during the transition process. By 8:15, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, and Amara stepped out. This time, she wore crimson. No security detail, no assistant, just her in a thin leather folder. As she walked through the sliding doors, every head turned. No one said a word. She didn't pause. Straight through the lobby, into Kyle's office. Closed the door. It was a short meeting. Less than 15 minutes later, Kyle walked out with a cardboard box in his arms and his face pale as printer paper. Cheryl watched in stunned silence as he exited the building. Her stomach turned. A younger black woman in a gray pantsuit entered the lobby right after and introduced herself to the staff. "Hi, everyone. I'm Brielle, and I'll be your interim branch director during this transition. There are some new equity and bias trainings you'll be attending next week, but today's business continues as usual." Cheryl stood frozen at her station, still staring toward the glass doors where Kyle had just vanished. "Questions?" Brielle asked kindly. Cheryl swallowed. "Who's in charge now?" Brielle smiled gently. "Same woman who was last week. You just didn't realize it." Later that afternoon, Amara returned to her corner office at Blake Tower, 46th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that stretched past the airport on clear days. Her assistant, Mari, brought her lunch and some documents. "There's been an uptick in press requests," Mari said. "The New York Times, The Root, Business Insider. They all want interviews." Amara didn't look up from the file in her hands. "Decline." Mari hesitated. "You sure? This would be a big moment." Amara finally glanced at her. "What they want is a soundbite. A viral moment. I'm not interested in being a symbol. Let them ask better questions first." Mari nodded. She respected that. Still, as she turned to leave, she said softly, "People are watching you and learning, whether you want them to or not." Amara knew. That's why she had to be precise. Intentional. Always. Later that evening, she walked through the streets of Atlanta alone. She wore a hoodie. No makeup. She passed by bars, food trucks, a street corner poet rhyming about dreams and death. She liked walking unnoticed, breathing in her city without pretense. She turned a corner and found herself facing a mural she hadn't seen before. It was painted on the side of an old convenience store, bright blues and oranges swirling around a black girl in a business suit. She stood tall, towering over a skyline that looked suspiciously like Atlanta's, her arms crossed and her expression calm but unbreakable. At the bottom of the mural was a quote. "Power doesn't ask permission. It claims space." Amara Blake. She stared at it for a long moment, then let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. It wasn't about ego. It never had been. It was about walking into a room and refusing to shrink, even when they asked you to, especially when they asked you to. A week later, she sat across from Richard Fallon, the CEO of Westbar Holdings, one of the largest financial conglomerates in the Southeast. They were discussing a potential acquisition of a chain of regional banks, a move that would extend Blake Financial into 5 new states. Fallon, an older white man in an expensive navy suit, stirred his coffee slowly before speaking. "You've built something extraordinary," he said. "No one's denying that. But you have to admit there's resistance. Traditionalists, people who don't think this kind of growth is sustainable under your leadership." Amara leaned forward. "You mean they don't think a black woman can lead a multi-billion-dollar firm across state lines?" Fallon blinked but didn't deny it. She continued, "That's fine. They'll get used to it, or they'll get replaced." He raised an eyebrow. "You're not afraid of making enemies, are you?" She smiled without warmth. "Only afraid of wasting time." He chuckled, a low, nervous sound. "You're not what I expected." "You never are," she replied. The deal closed a month later. But not everything was easy. Even within her own company, there were cracks. Whispers about her being too aggressive. Emails forwarded without her knowledge. Questioning whether she had the temperament for such rapid growth. Subtle sabotage from those who'd rather she stayed in the background. One day, Andre, the CFO, approached her with concern. "There's some unrest in the acquisitions team. A few senior managers are saying the culture's changing too fast, that you're pushing too hard." Amara stared at him. "Do they mean I'm pushing them too hard?" He hesitated. "Maybe." She shook her head. "They liked it better when we were small, when we didn't ruffle feathers, when we played nice." Andre didn't disagree. "I'm not here to play nice," she said. I'm here to own the damn table. Andre nodded. Just, don't forget to take care of yourself, too. She didn't respond, but his words lingered. That night, she returned home late. Her penthouse overlooked Piedmont Park. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat by the window. There was a photo on her bookshelf of her mother, in a faded denim apron, standing outside the hair salon she ran for 20 years in Decatur. A woman who never had college, never had savings, but always had pride. Amara whispered to the photo, "They still don't see us." "But I do." She lifted her glass. To every black woman who walked into a room and wasn't seen until she made it impossible not to. Then she sat in the silence and let herself rest for the first time in days. 2 months passed. The story of the bank incident had quietly faded from headlines, but its aftershocks had not. Internally, Blake Financial Group was growing at a pace most firms only dreamed of, and with that came scrutiny, envy, and resistance. Amara sat in a glass-walled boardroom on the 49th floor, watching a presentation led by one of her senior VPs, a man named Charles Rowan. A Harvard grad with a Wall Street resume and a tailored suit that practically screamed old money. He clicked through slides, confidently laying out a proposal for expansion into North Carolina via acquisition of a legacy banking institution. "I believe this is our cleanest path into the Carolinas," Charles said. But the current leadership of Carlton Bank has expressed hesitations. They're a family-run institution, generational. There's concern about cultural mismatch. Amara didn't flinch. "What culture are they referring to?" Charles hesitated. "They haven't said directly, but they don't want to be acquired by a black-led firm." He didn't answer, which was answer enough. A few others in the room shifted uncomfortably, but Amara's voice was calm. "Let's be clear," she said. "They're not worried about culture. They're worried about control." Charles cleared his throat. "I can keep pushing on back channels. Assure them that if acquired, they'll retain local leadership. We can soft sell it." Amara's gaze cut through him. "Tell them this. I don't soft sell truth. We're not coming to blend in. We're coming to lead. If they want to preserve their legacy, they can do it under our banner or under a for sale sign." Silence. Then understood. After the meeting, Amara lingered alone. Her fingers traced the grain of the conference table, imported mahogany. She wasn't angry. She was used to this. The coded language. The resistance disguised as formality. But that didn't make it easier. Her phone buzzed. One new voicemail, Mom. She pressed play. "Hi, baby. I know you're busy. I just wanted to tell you how proud I am. I drove by that big tower today and saw your name. I almost cried. You did it, Amara. Don't let anyone make you smaller than what you are. Call me if you get a second. I love you." Amara closed her eyes. For just a moment, she let herself feel it. Then she opened them again and moved. The next week, Amara flew to Charlotte to meet the board of Carlton Bank in person. The boardroom was all wood paneling, oil paintings, and polished silver coffee sets like a museum of Southern tradition. 10 men sat around the table, all white, most over 60. The chairman, Ellis Carlton III, greeted her stiffly. "Ms. Blake, we appreciate your visit." She smiled politely. "It's Mrs. Blake, but Amara is fine." He didn't smile back. The presentation began. Amara's team walked through their proposal: clean acquisition, generous valuations, job guarantees for all branch-level employees. Everything the Carltons had asked for. And still, at the end, Ellis said, "It's clear you've built something impressive, but we're not sure our clients are ready for this kind of transition." Amara didn't blink. "You mean they're not ready for me?" He tried to object, but she continued. "I know what you're afraid of, Mr. Carlton. You think our presence will scare off your old money clients. That the sight of my face in your annual reports will cost you donors at the country club. You'd rather keep things quiet, safe, unchallenged." She leaned forward. But I didn't build Blake Financial by asking permission. I built it by offering a better product, better ethics, better results. And I've done it while being everything you're afraid of: black, woman, unapologetically ambitious. Ellis looked away, jaw clenched. Amara rose. I'll give you a week to decide. After that, we move on. And if you choose to pass, I promise 6 months from now, you'll be wondering how we're opening branches across the street from every one of yours. She walked out, and they did call back. 5 days later, with terms. By fall, Blake Private Wealth had branches in 5 states, and Amara was on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "The Banker Who Broke the Ceiling." But visibility came with pressure. Inside the firm, some employees, particularly white men in legacy roles, began voicing frustrations. Complaints about diversity quotas. Concerns that merit was being sacrificed. Amara called a town hall. Hundreds of employees gathered in the atrium lobby, where a stage and microphone had been set. No teleprompters, no prepared notes. Amara stepped up, dressed simply, hair pulled back. She looked around the room, then said, "I hear the whispers that this company has changed too much, that we've moved too fast, that we're being too inclusive." She paused. No one moved. "Let me be clear. We're not doing this to check a box. We're doing this because the old way left too many people out. We're not lowering the bar. We're asking why it was set so high for some and so low for others." Her voice was even, unwavering. "If you joined this company expecting to play by the old rules, I understand why you feel threatened. But we're not going back. We're not here to make you comfortable. We're here to make you better. And if that scares you, I suggest you ask yourself why." Silence. Then applause. Not forced. Not polite. Earnest. That night, she returned to her penthouse and stared out at the city. Below, the lights of Atlanta flickered like distant stars. She was tired, not from the work, but from the wait. Being a first, a symbol, a mirror held up to systems that had never been questioned before. Her mother called again. This time, Amara picked up. "Hi, Mama." "Hi, baby. You sound tired." "I am." There was a pause. "Then let me remind you who you are," her mother said. "You're the girl who sold candy in 4th grade to pay for her own calculator. The girl who got into Columbia without a single legacy letter. The girl who's rewriting the rules and still calling her mama every Sunday. You're tired, baby, but you're not done." Amara felt her throat tighten. "Thanks, Mama. I love you, and I'm proud of you." "I know." 1 month later, Cheryl, a former teller, showed up at a Blake Wealth branch in Marietta, resume in hand. She was older now, worn, humbled. The branch director, a young black man in his 30s, recognized her name instantly. "You used to work at All Trust," he said, scanning her application. She nodded quietly. "I did." He looked at her for a long time, then asked, "Why do you want to work here?" Cheryl's hands trembled slightly. "Because I've been given a lot of chances in life, and I wasted most of them thinking I was better than people who looked different than me. But I want to do better. If I can help someone feel seen when I didn't, I want to try." The director nodded slowly. "Ms. Blake has a philosophy," he said. "We don't punish people for who they were, only who they refuse to become." He slid a form across the desk. "Welcome to Blake." Cheryl blinked. Just like that. Just like that. The final quarter of the year arrived. Blake Financial had crossed $10 billion in assets. Amara was named one of Fortune's Women of the Year. Emails flooded in every day from young women, from dreamers, from skeptics turned believers. But her favorite email came one Thursday morning from a high school student in Decatur. "Hi, Ms. Blake. I just wanted to tell you that I walk past your tower every day on my way to school. And every time I do, I whisper to myself, that building's got my future in it. Thank you for making me believe I can be more than what they tell us we're allowed to be." Amara didn't cry often, but that day she did. Not from pain, but from purpose. Winter in Atlanta was mild but brisk, the kind of cold that made the city's skyscrapers shimmer with holiday lights and ambitions alike. Inside Blake Tower, the energy buzzed, mergers closing, new hires onboarding, philanthropic projects launching. Amara Blake had become more than a CEO. She was a movement, but movements come with targets. One Monday morning, Andre stormed into her office, tight-lipped and pale. "You're going to want to see this." He dropped a manila folder onto her desk. She opened it. Inside were screenshot private emails between board members of several competitor banks. They weren't just unprofessional. They were ugly. Blake's too aggressive. She doesn't play by the rules. She's dangerous. Can't believe this girl thinks she's going to run the Southeast. Let her try. Let her overextend and collapse. Her Diversity Act is going to implode. Watch her fall. But the worst wasn't the words. It was the plan. A coordinated effort to undermine Blake Financial's next acquisition by manipulating regulators, spreading false financial data, and quietly pressuring partners to withdraw from existing deals. It was sabotage carefully disguised as market caution. Amara read the entire folder in silence. Then she stood up. "Call legal. We're going to court." What followed was one of the most closely watched financial lawsuits of the decade. Blake Financial Group v. Tribank Collective. Headlines exploded. Power, prejudice, and one woman's battle for the boardroom. Blake takes on the old boys club and might win. Racial bias in finance. A landmark case unfolds. Amara didn't hide. She testified. Publicly. Boldly. With receipts, dates, and names. She didn't just prove sabotage. She revealed the rot. The systemic generational collusion that kept certain firms at the top not because they earned it, but because they protected each other behind closed doors. The courtroom listened in stunned silence as she read aloud from an email by a rival CEO. "We'll let her build it up, then bleed her slow. She won't see it coming." Amara looked up at the judge. "I saw it coming," she said. "I've seen it coming since I walked into my first internship and was asked if I was there to deliver coffee. I've seen it every time someone questioned my credentials, my tone, my right to be in the room." She paused. "But I stayed, and I built, and I'm still here." The court ruled in her favor. A $300 million settlement. Public apologies. Resignations across the boardrooms of Tribank Collective. But Amara didn't stop there. She launched a national initiative. Open Ledger, a nonprofit dedicated to exposing discriminatory practices in finance and creating transparent audits of hiring, lending, and investment behavior. Within a year, 20 firms signed on. Not because they wanted to, because public pressure made silence costlier than change. Amara redirected $50 million of the lawsuit payout into scholarships for young Black women pursuing careers in finance. She visited high schools in rural Georgia. She sat on folding chairs and told teenage girls, "You're not too loud. You're not too much. You're exactly right. Let them catch up." And they listened. Years passed. Blake Financial expanded across the East Coast, then the Midwest. By the time Amara turned 40, her firm was the third largest Black-owned financial institution in the country and still growing. And yet, she remained grounded. Every Sunday, she called her mother. Every birthday, she visited the salon in Decatur that now bore a new sign. Blake and Mama's Cuts were the legacy started. But something was shifting inside her. A restlessness. A whisper that maybe, just maybe, it was time to pass the torch. One evening, she sat with Andre on the rooftop of Blake Tower. They watched the skyline glow against the indigo sky. "I think I'm ready," she said. "Ready for what?" he asked. "To step back. To let someone else lead." Andre stared at her, stunned. "You're serious?" She nodded. "I built the house, but I don't have to live in every room." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You'll be missed in the day-to-day. I'll still be here, just not at the front. Not always." 6 months later, in a packed auditorium at Spelman College, Amara took the stage one last time as CEO. Cameras flashed. The crowd roared. She stood at the podium, radiant in white. "I was never supposed to be here," she began. "Not by their rules. But I learned that the rules don't define the game the players do." Applause. My journey started with a bank teller who looked me in the eye and assumed I didn't belong. But I did. And so do you. More applause. To every girl who's been told she's too loud, too black, too ambitious build anyway. The skyscraper doesn't rise because someone allows it to. It rises because someone lays the foundation every single day and refuses to stop. Thunderous applause. Amara stepped back, and for the first time in decades, she let someone else take the mic. Her successor, Briella, the same woman who'd once led the branch transition after Cheryl's departure. Now the youngest CEO of a top 10 financial firm in the nation. The torch had passed, but the fire kept burning. 10 years later, a group of elementary school girls stood in front of Blake Tower on a school field trip. One girl, no older than 10, pointed up at the building with wide eyes. "Who's that building named after?" Her teacher smiled. She was a CEO, a builder, a warrior in heels. The little girl tilted her head. "Is she still alive?" "Oh, yes," the teacher said, smiling wider. "She just doesn't need to be in buildings anymore. She's in people." Somewhere in Ghana, Amara Blake walked barefoot along a quiet beach. No makeup, no meetings, just the hum of waves and the pull of memory. Her tablet buzzed. A news alert. Blake Financial announces first branch in Africa. She smiled, not because she owned it, but because she started it. And now, it belonged to everyone who believed they could be more, even when the world told them no. Especially then. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.